when I was an undergraduate student at Arizona State University, word on the street was that humanities majors like myself could find themselves an easy A if they took Introduction to Solar Systems Astronomy. It's just planets, right? Well, the piece that no one told me when they told me which science class I should take if I just wanted to pad my GPA was that there's a lab portion that takes place at night. I was sold a false bill of goods about this easy A. And so, every Thursday late, I would find myself climbing the stairs of one of the sciences buildings on campus that semester. And I would get up to the rooftop, and there were all these telescopes, and so me and all my fellow, diligent students who had managed to maybe bring our lab papers with us, hopefully, gathered around and looked into the telescope, pointed it in the direction that the grad student had told us to point it, and saw nothing. Maybe the moon would be really big. But Arizona State University is in Tempe, Arizona, which is in the middle of the Phoenix Metro Valley, an enormous megalopolis bursting with light. There was so much light pollution that it was functionally impossible to see anything other than the brightest stars in our lab. Painfully, the grad student would talk about all of the things that we could see, if we could see. Bless him. Talking about this is there, and maybe if you just think really hard, look really hard into your telescope. He assured us that they were there, but that we would not be able to see them. And then, later that semester, it was Thanksgiving break, and I opted not to go home for Thanksgiving. Sorry, Mom. But I tagged along with a friend to her dad's house up in Prescott, Arizona. And Prescott, Arizona is a much, much smaller town up in the mountains, and we took this long drive, and there was a brief moment where we were lost, and we ended up going up a mountain that we didn't have to go up, and then going down the mountain that we did not have to go up, through some switchbacks, and it's one of those moments where you're like, should I have trusted my life to my 19-year-old dorm roommate? But I did. We finally get to her dad's house, which is sort of on the outskirts, way outside of Prescott. The car stops, we open the doors, and I looked up. Oh, I thought. This is what poor Brian has been trying to tell me about all semester. This is what he's been trying to show us. This is why he dedicated his life to the work of astronomy. This is what has been there all along, and I have been unable to see. This time of year in our society and culture can feel a little bit like joy is compulsory. Enforced joyfulness jangling from you like somebody following you with a jingle bell or mistletoe or tinsel. It's everywhere. It feels like there's no way to opt out. I think about it like joy pollution. There's just so much of it, and it's so everywhere, that there's no way on earth you could possibly see the thing you're trying to see. There's no way you could possibly perceive the true joy in your heart and your life and your mind and your spirit, because goodness knows it's just so jangly out there right now. When there's clutter of anything, You can't perceive the thing you are trying so desperately to perceive. The thing you are trying so desperately to locate in the night sky as a patient TA assures you that it's there. But no amount of willpower will allow you to see it. In the clip we watched from Cosmos, Carl Sagan talks about astronomy as a humbling and character-building experience. And it's because it reminds us of the finitude of humanity, our tininess, our insignificance, really, on a sort of cosmic scale. And one of the things that I love about being Unitarian Universalist is that the experience of scientific wonder is valid fodder for our work as a faith community, as religious community. We say that you don't need to leave your scientific wonder in the trunk when you come in the doors of our sanctuary. You get to bring it with you. It's part of how we construct meaning, how we kind of make sort of answers to life's big questions. But sometimes this thing that ought to be humbling and character building actually becomes ego enhancing. Not in the sense that it makes us feel specialer than we are or more something, but that it leads us to believe that we are capable of finding all the answers if only we look hard enough. And, for real scientists will tell you that that's not what science is about. And that there are questions that science cannot answer, either because they are unanswerable or because science wasn't designed to answer them in the first place. But sometimes, as Unitarian Universalists, we get caught up on the hamster wheel of thinking that we're gonna find an answer. Or that scientific wonder at our natural world and the process of understanding it, that is somehow means that we're more in control because we can name things or understand what makes them tick. But the truth of that scientific wonder is that it also engages mystery if we're doing it right, if we're bringing it in to our theological conversations, not that that means ideas about God, but that means ideas about how we answer life's questions. That mystery is part of contemplating our place in the cosmos, that small stage in that vast arena. And so, if we come out of our engagement with scientific wonder feeling like, wow, isn't it great to be human and learn all the answers, we have done it incorrectly. And in part because what Carl Sagan does with this smallness, with this character building and humbling experience of astronomy that he has, is that he turns it, or lets it turn him, into the question of, well then what might I do in response to that truth? Today is the third Sunday of Advent. And Advent in the Christian tradition is the 4 Sundays that precede Christmas Day. It's the process of waiting for the birth of Jesus. And today, the 4 candles have 4 different meanings, and today's candle is pink, and it means joy. And at this time of year where there can be an awful lot of joy pollution, thank you, Meg. Right, at this time of year where there can be an awful lot of noise, when we light the candle for joy, we ought to talk about what we really mean by joy when we talk about it in the setting of religious community, of spiritual meaning-making. So in congregations that use the Christian liturgy and liturgical sort of calendar, today many churches will read a portion from the book of Luke that we call the Magnificat. It's a song or a poem that Mary offers after she's found out that she's carrying baby Jesus. And she talks about joy. And sometimes, in our contemporary setting, when we talk about joy, we conflate it with happiness. And this portion from the book of Luke and from Mary is a specific invitation to not think about joy as happiness. And it's right because Mary, if we think, consider Mary and her circumstances. If she is going to rejoice about something, it's probably not going to be the material circumstances of her life. An unwed pregnant woman in the ancient Near East, living in some degree of poverty or lack of resources. It's not about what she has or who she is in the context of human-made community. She shares a song that is about a deep source of joy for her. She uses the phrase, "My soul magnifies the Lord," in a lot of English translations. And then she lists the things that give her joy, that make her soul rejoice, and none of them are like, wow, I got this new shirt last week, right? It's stuff that is deeper and about a wild and possible version of the world that she has never encountered but knows exists. She talks about how those who have taken more than their share will be sent away empty, how those who have oppressed others will be cast down, and those who have been oppressed will be uplifted. She shares a vision for a world she knows exists, but that she can't quite touch. Like God is a grad student whispering in her ear, "I promise it's there. I know you can't see it, but it's there." There's a gospel song that I really enjoy, and the tagline, the primary text of the gospel song is, "This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away." That if the source of our joy is the sorts of circumstances that change day to day and are subject to the whims of fate, then that means that joy can disappear pretty easily. And in the gospel song, the ultimate thesis is that the source of that joy is salvation by Jesus, and that's not what we do as Unitarian Universalists, in the sense that we do not say this is the single source of our joy. We reject the idea that there is a singular only path to that deep joy that lets us access this vision of a different world that might be possible. But sometimes that means that we're not very good about talking about that source of joy. And we let ourselves slip into happiness instead of joy. We let ourselves slip into thinking that profound joy is about material things. Say something to us we can learn by heart, and when alone, repeat. Because the truth is that when we are looking through that light-polluted telescope, happiness will probably not be enough to see us through and convince us that, yes, there is this deeper and wilder and more possible world out there where the lowly have been lifted up and the mighty have been cast down, or whatever it is, right, that we need something we can repeat when there is too much pollution. And that's where Carl Sagan's turn toward action matters. Where his invitation, right, what am I compelled to do in response to the truth that I am both a speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam, and that I am literally born of stars? How does that compel me to act in the world? This thing that brings me this deep, profound, transcendent joy, what does it ask of me? You know, Carl Sagan talks about preserving the earth, about compassion in human relationship that acknowledges that we're sort of all each other has. And so, my invitation to you in this season of joy pollution is to ask yourself, what does my source of joy ask of me? What does it compel me to do? When I experience that place deep in my being, where I feel confident and reassured that, yes, this deeper and wilder and more possible world, that it really exists, when I am in that place, how am I compelled to act in response? When I experience that soul-expanding joy, how am I called to be in the world? And, you know, it can feel lonely sometimes, trying to perceive that world. There are plenty of voices that will surround us and say that we're silly, that really all there is a bunch of nothing. And so what does the source of your joy ask of you? As you look through that telescope and eke out a belief, what does it ask of you? May it be so. Amen.